Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Gravity Sketch webinar featuring Vvolt. We're very excited to have you all here today. We've already got a pretty good crowd in here, but we're going to give everybody else just a few minutes to hop in, just so we can get a couple more people in here and let everyone find their links and all that good stuff. So, to kind of kick things off really quick, just like in the chat before we start going, drop in like level 1 to 5. How familiar with Gravity Sketch? If you know your hours, that's always a really fun one. Last webinar, we had someone with over 600 hours in Gravity Sketch, like absolutely wild. So love to see those power users in there. But yeah, go ahead and start dropping we got a 4 right there. Christina, love it. Yeah, who else we got? A 0. Love the newbies. We're going to show you some Gravity Sketch. 220 hours. Yeah, that's a lot of hours right there. That's pretty cool. Austin, Sawyer, do y'all know your hours by any chance?
I don't know if I want to say.
Yeah, tell us, Austin.
Oh, we want to know, Austin. How many hours you got?
I think probably pushing around 600.
Yeah,
in and out. So hours. In VR, outside of VR, through the screen collab. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a lot of hours. Nice. Let's see what else we got coming in here. Yeah, all right. 24, 30, 2.5 on the skill level. Like that a lot. Yeah. Totally green. Hey, green is okay. We're gonna, spend some time talking and some time in Gravity Sketch today using the screen collab app. So y'all are gonna get to see that. It'll be really cool. Cool. So we've got a pretty good amount of people here already. I know more people are gonna trickle in. So just for time's sake, I'm gonna go ahead and kick us off and then pass it to what y'all are really here for, the fun stuff, hearing from the designers. My name's Tyler. I'm on the marketing team here at Gravity Sketch. So I'm going to be just kind of in the background, making sure all the tech stuff works, filtering through questions that you all are asking as the audience, because that's one thing we want to make sure y'all know. This is going to be interactive. So we'll have a very set time for Q&A at the end where y'all can ask questions of Austin, Sawyer, Alex, all of that good stuff. But also, this is interactive. We don't have a script. We don't have an agenda. We want y'all to be involved, right? So if you have any questions throughout this, just start dropping them in the chat and I'll make sure to feed them to Austin, Sawyer, and Alex as they're going. While they're in VR, they might not be able to see them, but I'll make sure we're starting to feed those as we can. So yeah, please make sure you're using that chat feature to drop questions in throughout, just so either you don't forget them, but again, no, we're going to have some time at the end. So we're also going to record this webinar. So we'll post it on YouTube after. We'll send it to everyone who registers, share it with your friends, your colleagues, whoever. It'll be available forever, right? So it'll be really cool. We're going to spend about 10, 15 minutes doing some casual chat between Austin, Sawyer, and Alex, talking about some of their design philosophies, some of their process, workflows, all that good stuff. And then we're actually going to jump into VR and we'll use our Screen Collab app and I'll pin to Austin and he'll kind of walk through a bunch of really cool stuff that Sawyer and Alex have put together for us just around how they created these bikes and talk about their process. So yeah, with that, I think I'll kick it over to Austin, Sawyer, and Alex just to introduce themselves really quick and hop into questions. Looking forward to it, y'all.
Nice. Yeah, I can lead it off here. I'm Austin White. I'm an exploration consultant here at Gravity Sketch. And again, I'm just excited to be here to talk with Alex and Sawyer and sort of learn about their journey with Gravity Sketch, and not just that, but also, how they've gotten to this point of creating these two beautiful bikes. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and then we can go from there.
Sick. Thanks, Austin. I'm Sawyer Alcazar-Hagen. I am a designer. Right now, I'm a freelance designer. I worked at Vvolt for almost 3 years before I went freelance. I've been using Gravity Sketch since day one of my legitimate design career. I'd never used it in school. Alex is the one who turned me onto it right out of school. And I love the program. And I'm stoked to be here and hang out and talk about nerdy stuff.
Yeah, I'm Alex Xu. So like Sawyer said, so I was a professor at the University of Oregon for a while. I first touched VR for about 6 years ago, and then I've been an industrial designer for about 15 years in total. I was CAD specialist, pretty good with the traditional stuff. So when I first worked with Sawyer, it's funny to see how my old school skills, working with him, and he tends to use newer, more innovative way of communicating things, and how our philosophy intermingle and get the products out. So yeah, so it's a pleasure here to share our process and look forward to get questions itself and got more people interested in making better design in the VR space.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that's probably a good segue into the first question I want to ask both of you guys. But what does that typical design process look like for you guys from start to finish? And, what did it look like before Gravity Sketch, and what did it look like now that you've started using and incorporating Gravity Sketch?
Do you want me to start that, Alex?
Yeah, you do it.
So particularly at Vvolt, like it was a startup right when I started. So we had like no process, and I didn't really have a higher ups or like someone to be like, this is how you design a bike. Alex came in a little later and was incredibly helpful. But no, it was pretty insane to start it off. Like we didn't even have a design brief. So we kind of just made one up as we went. But typically how it works now, after a lot of trial and error at Vvolt and just in my own practice, like I do some really dirty sketches after I've kind of like understood what I'm designing, and then I immediately hop into Gravity Sketch and I'm just like blocking stuff out and doing my best to like figure out where everything needs to go in space and experimenting with where things can go in space. Because like in 2D and hand sketching, like I know Alex is incredibly proficient at hand sketching. I'm okay, but I find way more freedom and flexibility using Gravity Sketch. So it's usually dirty hand sketch, dirty CAD model, and then more refined hand sketches. And then I move into Photoshop and kind of like solidify. And then I smooth back into Gravity Sketch again and make like a more solidified CAD model. And then I move into Rhino and I really start to dial it in. So it's a lot of back and forth, and it's never the same. Every process changes,
Yeah, I will put in the before and after part of what Sawyer talks about. So, and I think there are a couple of books on Art Center College of Design to talk about how design happened back in the day. So usually you have some sort of MVP, minimal viable product put together, and most likely it's going to be a technical drawing, like front, top, side, if it's a gadget, whatever thing it is. And then people like sketch iteratively over that template for however many times. It's not really functionally iterating, but it's just like style-wise, right? Cars the same way, or the chassis together, like 3-wheel, 4-wheel, whatever trim it is, and then people just like sketching over that template. And especially, I mean, there's a lot of underlay and iteration where these are all just some people's best guess of how it will look like in the space. And then, so that's like how the process worked before Gravity Sketch, that kind of toolkit comes in, and people are just second guessing what they were creating. Whereas Gravity Sketch is like a very intuitive way to really interact with what you were creating, and you have a sense of it. You're really like, stepping aside, looking at things. It's actually for things like bikes. When you sketch so tiny little. No matter how big of a scale, they're nowhere near the reality. Whereas Gravity Sketch provided a segue into the proportion and view things. And so also for the later process, Gravity Sketch is good references. Sometimes the dimension could be obviously wrong, but we have no way to find out on a flat drawing. And then in that case, when we build our Rhino model, whatever, these are great ways to figure things out. And the other thing is like, usually we also have a lot of CAD cleanup and also technical drawing development of that Gravity Sketch thing. So they're actually two stack. But because we were able to do it in Gravity Sketch, so the experience is already defined. So we don't need to iterate on the engineering basis. So that's really provide a lot of convenience in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. And that's, I think, Alex, you bring up a really good point there in terms of problem solving, being able to sort of identify those areas quicker inside of Gravity Sketch. That's one thing that we talk about a lot in industries, is being able to problem solve faster and getting to that end state quicker. To piggyback off of that, what in terms of a 3D process now, where you're talking about moving into the 3D CAD model, and Sawyer, you touched on this with Rhino, how much quicker does this process seem to happen for you guys now that you go from 2D in Photoshop and really refining that to bringing that into Gravity Sketch and turning that into a 3D asset, and then moving that out of Gravity Sketch further downstream into Rhino, so you can use for handoffs or further communication with your partners? How has the adoption of these 3D programs sort of streamlined what you guys do?
I think it's like gotten stakeholders on board faster, because I can CAD model a concept faster and show them 3D stuff sooner and not hand sketches. There's nothing wrong with hand sketches, but there's something about 3D that just gets the stoke up for everybody. So I think that's how it's changed my flow, because I really didn't have like a industrial design flow without Gravity Sketch, you know. So that's how it's affected my workflow.
Yeah, I'll put it simply as like, how long does it take for a transportation designer to be able to fluently communicate their car designs with a proportion to the right scale and know that, right? So, I mean, that training is just to pick up that perspective and these things, but they're nowhere near communication. So you need to take a longer time to pick up the language to be able to speak it fluently, where Gravity Sketch is like, you don't need to learn that language, you're speaking it already. You're probably not at the resolution where, you know, the surfacing wise, but it gets the job done way quicker.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, one thing about this as well, and we talk about this a lot at Gravity Sketches, the collaboration aspect. Do you guys feel as if you're able to be more collaborative inside of Gravity Sketch than you were with, say, you know, a 2D program or even like a CAD program?
For sure. For sure. Because like I would do my crappy hand sketches and then I would meet with Alex pretty much immediately in collab space. And then we would push and pull shapes, sizes, et cetera, et cetera. So it's always, yeah, it's like it's expedited our collaboration to like getting to presentation mode sooner because we can work together in the same area and look at the exact same thing.
Yeah, and the other thing is a lot of people don't understand natural design sketches, no matter how fancy they are. So it's a good way to get our marketing team or got other stakeholder in and just jump into the headset, have them put it on for a second and say, hey, you know what, the things might be a little bit too this or that, and they already have the experience. So that's another part of it.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, and you know, one thing that designers really hang their hat on is being creative, right? So how does Gravity Sketch sort of open you guys up creatively? Do you feel like it unlocks sort of another level or dimension of your creative side of your brain in a way?
What can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah. So you know, for me, when I jump into Gravity Sketch, and I'm kind of like you, Sawyer. When I draw with pen and paper on 2D, I'm terrible, right? My brain just freezes up. But every time I put that headset on, I sort of just unlock a part of my brain that I didn't know was there or existed. And I'm like, holy cow, I can see this. And just that level of creativity sort of takes off for me. Do you guys experience similar things?
Yeah, totally. I get stoked super fast, which fuels me to do more exploration, basically. Yeah, I think that's how it's.
Yeah, I got stoked where I'm the opposite. I'm way more creative over paper flat surfaces to cheat that perspective. That's just how I was trained in hours and men. And so Sawyer and Ivy are actually the opposite in that sense. I got stoked seeing his 3D CAD. I was able to sketch over with detail, so we can move forward with it. So it's actually funny how they complement each other that way.
Yeah, awesome. I think this would be a good time for us to jump into VR and showcase some of this work. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Ready to do it?
Let's freaking go.
Okay. I'm going to, just for the sake of the headset, I'm going to turn my camera off.
Okay.
So nobody has to see me with some big bug eyes.
I would kind of love to see that personally, but.
Cool deal. I'm pulling up Gravity Sketch right now and we'll hop into collab.
Awesome. And I'll just do a microphone check. Can everybody hear me okay? Make sure we're muted in the headset.
Cool deal. And for those of y'all who don't know, this is our feature. It's called a collab room. And so this is what I was talking about. We're going to do another webinar on this here shortly on how to create a really cool room like this where you can actually showcase your designs and interact with, a lot of your with your clients, with your manufacturing partners, all of that good stuff here. So should be very cool. But yeah, let's hop in. Austin, you want to drive us around?
Yeah, y'all good?
Yeah.
We're looking at the streaming screen still on a browser.
Oh, are you? It's not showing the
Yeah,
Gravity Sketch? Hold on 1 second because I'm watching Austin and Gravity Sketch, so I apologize, y'all. One thing I also just realized, I actually cannot see the chat while I am following collab around everybody. So
I will watch it. I'll watch the chat and pick up questions.
Perfect. All right.
Savior.
Alrighty. Can y'all see Austin and collab now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Let me repin to him. We're good to go then.
Beautiful. Okay. So welcome everybody to our collab space. So again, I just have to thank Sawyer. I mean, everything that he's put together is absolutely beautiful, and I'm excited to jump around this room and let him really sort of guide you through his process. So in light of that, welcome to Slice. This is the first of the 2 bikes that we're going to cover today. And Sawyer, I kind of just want you, and I'm going to start over here on the left, but talk me through your process, man. Talk me through how you go from these amazing 2D sketches to this really beautiful, refined, like ideation phase in 3D. What does that look like? Where do you start, and how do you get going inside of GS?
How I get... So I'm like pretty research driven as a designer. Like, I don't like making arbitrary random decisions. So yeah, you can see like this is a snapshot from Notion, which is a online like whiteboard. That's a super collaborative space as well. So I did some like rough research, rough questionnaires to like roughly 100 people. And I got a bunch of data to like inform this project. And the idea was like we were trying to build a bike that was youth centric, like 16 to 25 years of age. And basically after the data, I start drawing. And then after the drawing, I need to get people stoked and on board for my design. So I hop into Gravity Sketch. And Alex, feel free to jump in here too if you think I'm missing anything. But yeah, bikes are crazy, not to go off on a huge tangent, but yeah, it's one big product, but it's a vehicle. So it's comprised of a bunch of small products. So there's, the frame design, which was super important because we were trying to do something relatively iconic. And with electric bikes, we were trying to explore different ways of integrating lighting since the bikes are electrified and they have a fat battery installed in them. So yeah, through research, it was like safety was one of the huge things about biking. So I was like, okay, we need integrated lighting. We were making a cargo bike because we wanted this to be like city commute centric, because cars are super expensive and bikes are a more affordable alternative. So we're like, okay, it needs to transport stuff. So we did a rack design. Yeah, this is like what I present to our stakeholders pretty much. The black images there. So depending on the project, I wouldn't send stakeholders into like 3D collaborative space. I would render it out in Blender. I would take the OBJ files from Gravity Sketch and render them out and then present 10 concepts or less. Usually less. People get a little overwhelmed with 10 concepts.
One thing that that I love about this room, and when Sawyer shared all of these assets with me, to be quite honest, I was a little blown away with the sheer volume of iteration in 3D that you have done. And I think this is a great example of, you know, a different type of iteration in a 3D space. And Sawyer, talk a little bit, if you can, about the process of iteration for you, and if that helps speed up some of those, you know, troubled areas that are hard to not just understand but depict to other people in 2D. So I saw these lights and I was just like, wow, these are amazing, because I can't imagine how difficult these are to depict in a 2D drawing.
Yeah, sheesh. That's kind of a hard one to answer. Like, again, it was like derived from research, and that drives my iteration. So like, if you zoom way in, Austin, like you see the weird little like loop-de-loops.
Yeah.
So those were going to be little plugs for USB ports. So you pop those out and you plug a USB in. So what was derived from that is, okay, lighting, storage, and like carrying capability, and then like overall battery utility, like using the battery as your generator or your source of power when in an area without it. So it was like, okay, how do we integrate like AC power and lighting into like the two ends of the bike that would, you know, be a useful point of access? So that's what we did. That's what I did. So I just like went ham with 3D models. And like, so I don't think there's any examples of it, but everyone probably, the majority of people in the chat might know about the mirror mode in Gravity Sketch. So I basically just like put a bike, mess with it a bunch until I'm like stoked and I have another idea. And then I just, you know, group it, click and drag and duplicate it. And then I just start to augment it again.
Awesome.
Does that answer your question? I feel like
dude, that's perfect. Yeah. And another thing that I love about this too is, you notice when I first started in this room, everything was scaled up, and I was generally around 100%, which is ideally like 1-to-1 scale for us. And Alex brought it up earlier, but being able to work in that 1-to-1 scale, especially with bikes, is such a game changer, right? Because there's so many things and nuances that you can see as you start to get into that proportionate scale, that 1-to-1 scale, that obviously you wouldn't with the 2D design. And you know, the other thing that just blew me away was the sheer amount of iterations. I mean, it's almost like beating a dead horse, but I can say this over and over again. You know, these models are so cool and they tell such a great story, that I can look at this bike and immediately I know, like, ergonomically that works. You can scale it up if you wanted to. I have a question for you guys. In Gravity Sketch, Sawyer, did you ever scale this up 1-to-1 and sort of like stand next to it or anything, or like grab the handlebars?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we'll pull a chair over and feel like we're sitting on the bike, but that's a dumb thing to do. Like, don't ask me why you shouldn't do it, but I mean, just make sure you're standing for yourself. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, why not, man? You know, you have these assets now. Get the full use out of them. And again, like, let's pull some of these off the rack here and look at them even more.
That was a weird one. But check out the ports for like the surfboard holder. Like, we were trying to create like platforms and clear points of attachment. I thought that was so cool when we did that.
This is amazing, man. So one thing too that I want to cover is, we have a nice assortment of 3D assets, but you also have a very nice collection of 2D drawings and designs. And like you were talking, Sawyer, it's very driven by data for you. When you get into that data phase and you start sort of sketching and ideating, with this in particular, at this stage here, are these, when you review, are these your ideas for like final concepts, or are these still very much like work in progress until you jump into Gravity Sketch?
Okay, so all those black images there, or black background, those were very like vibe centric, like form and vibe. You know, I wanted the stakeholders to get on board because like we were a startup and we didn't really have like a design language like lined out. So there was a lot of like check-in with, you know, the CEO and you know, our marketing director and stuff, because everyone's input's super important when you're such a tiny little team. So this was vibe for sure. And then the white images, so this is the rack. So this was much further along. So basically we had done some prototypes. Sorry, am I clipping because of the wind?
No, you're okay.
Am I good? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were really far along with this project. So the basket, the front basket is what this was focused on. And we'd run into issues with the prototype, and I was like trying to come up with solutions for the same design with the same functionality, but different construction to like solve the issue. So that was me going super fast to just communicate. Yeah, here's.
I think we
like,
could even bring these over here as well. And
yeah, so those are like gross and just super fast, you know. Me trying to figure stuff out within like 30 minutes, you know. And like I don't think I could do that with design, like sketches. I don't think I could.
That is hard. That especially no matter just you do it over flat sketches or you do it in 3D programs, like doing this kind of 3D lines and going over different axes, that is crazily, insanely hard.
Yeah, and I could imagine, you know, even some of these more intricate detailing, although, Sawyer, you say this is very rough and down and dirty, like you do need to understand how these objects are going to be constructed.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to, in my mind, it would be really hard for me to try and break that down on a, you know, on a 2D sort of
for real
plane.
And
yeah, and I'm not proficient enough in Rhino to like whip that up. Like that's like a 5-minute thing, you know, that you're looking at those 3D models right there. Alex, what were you gonna say?
Oh, the other thing is like I also don't want people to understand that a lot of these models is like, so once Sawyer have a quick sketch in Rhino, usually we will do have a sketch in Gravity Sketch. Usually we will have a Rhino session immediately after to make sure they are spec, they are right with the engineering details, and then we will use that model and import it back to Gravity Sketch again for another round of iteration of the right model. So you also can see over the board, like the tubes and stuff, those are actually modeled in Rhino. There are two, like in the first board, those are actually modeled in Rhino off from like factory drawing and then send it back in. And then also some of the renderings, you can see like even the basket is in Gravity Sketch, but the frame has been done in Rhino, they're accurate. So we are not just like relying on one at a time, we're iterating and make sure everything is as accurate as possible. I mean, sticking with one software is really not the purpose. The purpose is to do meaningful iteration with the accurate geometry over time.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alex. And one thing that we love at Gravity Sketch is we take a lot of pride in being able to play well with other programs. And we feel that, you know, Gravity Sketch is a tool for designers to have in their tool belt. It's not going to be the only tool. And it shouldn't be the only tool that they have, right? So it's just another way for you to be able to problem solve a lot quicker and get to that end goal a lot faster, right? Because that's the goal for every designer who's creating something. How do I create the best product as efficient as I can? So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and like, for example, look at that battery. So the weird cylindrical tube thingy-majiggy right there. Yeah, so like, the longest white part there, Austin.
This one?
So that's a Rhino model. Like I CAD modeled that, and that's 2 spec from factory drawings. Like you can see the extrusion. Like it's like a very detailed CAD model.
Yeah.
We were trying to come up with a larger battery system that would fit to our non-proprietary component. So that was me just being quick and dirty, throwing a larger cell count in the same battery chassis. And I was able to do that, render it for the stakeholders, and get everyone really stoked really quickly.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and if you zoom in on that, I wish I was in there with you so bad. So go to the other end of that little component, Austin, and lift that little flap up right there. It's probably great. Yeah, so those are just like, hey, I want USB-C ports right here. So the idea was you could take this large battery, pop it out of the battery cradle, and then I don't have the drawing in here, but then I did a really quick hand sketch with this rendered of it just hanging next to a hammock in a tree. So someone could clip it to their hammock and plug their phone in and chill out in a hammock with a big, cool battery.
Amazing. Yeah. So ideally these parts, this would be sort of separate, if you will. Like this area would come out of what this would be. So it would be its own thing, essentially, where you could bring it out and use as a separate charging port. That's really awesome.
But that's, just another example of us blending Rhino and Gravity Sketch to like get results super fast.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So we're sort of on the topic of 3D programs, and after we chat about this for a minute, let's jump over to the other group of bikes. But what are the other programs, 3D programs, that you guys use in conjunction with Gravity Sketch? So we know Rhino is one of them, obviously. What are the other programs that you use down your 3D stream of tools?
I know, Alex, you use a bunch because you're in footwear.
I mean, let's talk about specifically bike stuff for now.
Okay,
I think there are two routes of things. So first of all, there's like asset management, which is for, like, you can see the website. These are absolutely renderings. And Sawyer and what's that? I forgot the other person's name. I'm so sorry. The other candidate of ours, they work on the animations. Colin, was that Colin?
Oh yeah, Colin. He was a contractor.
Colin. Yeah. So Colin and Sawyer, they did such a great job going over the 3D asset, rendering it out. So they turn the CAD asset into 3D asset, and a lot of people understand that differences. Like CAD are essentially boundary representative geometries, right? They're tessellated to be rendered. However, the point count is too high for transition and all that. So Colin and Sawyer, they turn into Blender, and then they transition the model, do the textures and all that, just so they could render it like a real photo. So even before our prototype hit the coast, they were able to show how the product eventually, how it looks like in the showroom with that route of software. And I don't know if you guys use Cinema 4D, but Blender is like preliminary, and then some other stuff, I don't know. And then over the engineering out, Rhino is actually good as a starting point, and we also use SolidWorks, which, if you're in the bike industry, and then that's, I don't know the company, but at least like all the people we deal with that use SolidWorks for mechanical pieces, how they fit together. So usually I will do a round of like iteration, taking the surface model from Rhino, and then we will put in the thickness and work with the engineer. We also do like FEA analysis over like the strength and integrity of the frame design. So that's what ends up going to the factory at the end of the day. So that's how the 3D asset was translated over time in terms of like a pilot pipeline.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So again, this is the first of two that we're going to cover. So Slice, and now let's move on to Pi. What do you guys say?
Jaw.
Let's do it. Wow.
Check it out.
So welcome to 2 of 2. This is Pi. So we've we've talked about your guys' process. Before we jump into this, we have some viewers right now that are relatively new to Gravity Sketch, and we have some that are relatively experienced. Let's say a question for the new users: if they want to get started in Gravity Sketch, what would be the first handful of things you would recommend to somebody who's wanting to get in here and create something like a bike or just create in general?
What would be,
What
I don't
do you
know.
think helped you out the most when you first started? What was a couple things that
you guys probably still have them, but the integrated tutorials.
Okay. Yeah.
Like that's how I started.
Yeah.
I remember there was a good old showcase of like furniture stuff, like tubing stuff. You know, have like two things, whatever. It's just like use like a single way, maybe just like a form of a tube or box, or stacking things around. I think like the tube chairs is like super good one. I forgot who did the tutorial back in the day, but that's how I got started.
Yeah, I would just recommend doing tutorials and then getting in there and getting dirty and getting mad because you can't figure out how to do it, and then looking up a video on how to do it. I don't know if that's helpful at all, but
no, that's perfect, man. Yeah, it's so there's for anybody who is in or watching now who is relatively new to Gravity Sketch, we have a very awesome library of tutorials that you guys can actually access inside of the headset. We actually have a tutorial that will allow you to create a bike. So if you're looking to get in but you don't know where to start, jump right in, because we have tutorials available for everybody to be able to get you to any level that you'd like to get to. Awesome. So guys, tell me a little bit about Pi. Let's talk about Pi for a minute. What was the inspiration behind it? And yeah, just break it down for me.
Pi. Alex, do you remember?
All right.
It was like,
yeah.
we wanted parents. We wanted to target parents with like larger cargo loads. No? Alex,
Quick and dirty. Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, long story short, we saw there's a market of like bikes holding more than one kid, and then they have like bigger capacities. But we also realized that a lot of these bikes on the market, they're either underpowered or they don't have enough things to work with each other. They don't have the modularity. But we did some research over how things are used, what are the opportunities, so we were able to identify it and we move forward. And then we got the awesome opportunity to collaborate with someone. And we happen to need to wrap up this project really, really, really quick, like insanely quick. And then that's when Sawyer went into Gravity Sketch and bring back all of these models. Is that 2 nights or 3 nights? Like very short period of time, we were able to do a lot of iteration to go to place that we don't think we can go to without the tool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I remember while you were talking, Alex. And yeah, we did this in, I think, 7 days-ish. So we were designing Slice, and some stakeholders kept going like, we need a rear rack, we need a rear rack, we need a rear rack. And I was like, the bike was getting like too big and too complicated to like accommodate all the things. And then I was like, why don't we just like do it right and do a super cargo driven, not like a cargo light driven model, like a Longtail, to compete with all the other Longtail models that are in the market that you see commonly on the streets, like Turn. I know Rad Power. I can't remember Rad Powers off the top of my head, but I was like, why don't we just do one of those? Like, I think it would make more sense instead of trying to like just extrapolate too much out of Slice and losing what the original like vision and brief was for it. So we had 7 days ish, I think, to like show this off to the stakeholders and get a factory on board. So yeah, we drew a lot, quick and dirty. Like when I'm talking quick and dirty, yeah, Austin, go up there. Like, look at how bad some of these drawings are. Like if you zoom in, like it's me with a fat brush stroke in Photoshop, just like.
Oh yeah, yep. Wow, yeah.
And then Alex and I would be like, okay, we're vibing with this. And then yeah, like so that image right there that you're going in on with the big like black blob,
right here?
Yellow bike, yep, right there. So I did that like right when we started Slice, and we haven't even talked about a Longtail yet. But I walked into the office that day, and one of our coworkers had a Turn, and not to hate on Turn, but like they have so much trussing, and it's this wild, loud frame, and I was like, man, like I want this to be like way quieter and like way more refined and less like tubey. And so I just drew this super quick. And then like 3 months later, we ended up coming back to it, which was kind of cool. Yeah, there's like some quick and dirty models. Yeah. That BMW is so rad, man.
I love it. So, you know, the inspiration came from Slice, and you sort of just started to expand on that. And there's, you know, if I were to just look at the front of this bike, I see a lot of resemblance, but the main attraction, I guess, is in, you know, the latter half of the bike, right, where the long tail comes into play. And, you know, I think when I look at these images up here, the iterations you have are amazing, but kind of like we were talking about earlier, it's really hard, you know, to depict some of these things in a 3D setting. Like, how is this going to wrap over the wheel? Or how are these going to interact with all of the other accessories that come in play when you're talking about, you know, a bike like this? And, you know, just by using the stroke tool inside of Gravity Sketch, you were able to sort of work through some of those things, right?
Yeah. Very quickly too.
Amazing. Yeah, and just for everybody out there, Sawyer, when he gave me the file, he probably had 30 of these bikes.
Yeah, we had a lot.
Unfortunately, they couldn't all fit into the space, so I grabbed 6 of them and put them in here. But yeah, just the volume of iteration was insane to see, and honestly, it was pretty awesome to see because you know, my background is in footwear, and you know, being able to see iteration at that level with something that is an everyday item in the world is really awesome. And I always sort of gravitate to these renders as well because you know, we talk about Gravity Sketch being that really nice tool that plays well with other programs, and the stuff that you create in here can directly translate into those rendering softwares like Blender, Cinema 4D, or Keyshot, and they just turn into beautiful renders and they tell amazing stories. And so I'm so drawn by what this is, because this is a product of what you guys are creating inside of GS.
Yo, that is a wild one. I forgot it. That looks like Matrix, like human harvester bike or something. You know?
I think we might. Do I have that one in here? I don't know if I do.
That one's pretty wild.
I do, unfortunately, but
I don't remember I ever saw those. So thank you for deleting them back in the days.
I'm noticing something here. You know, if we were to just remove that piece, I'll try and move slowly here. We need to grab our other piece and bring it back in. So this is where your charging port would be, right, Sawyer? So this little area here, this would be your charging port, correct? Where you'd put your charging block. Do I have that right?
That would just be the battery, the large lithium.
Or the battery, yeah, the battery. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
My terminology is a little rough.
Yeah, sorry, Austin. I think there's one thing that's significant to bring up. It's like so there's one thing we figured out is like if you see that box behind under the seat right there, and then that space originally was literally like nothing, and we were only able to realize there's a lot of empty space over there because we looked at it in the space, and then we were able to justify this space with some actual functionality. That wrap piece over there.
Yeah, that was a classic example of what Wilson Smith III, my college professor for my 5th year, he's like, you always got to get like double click. And I was like, what the hell is a double click, dude? And he's like, it's like combining multiple features into one piece. So like that probably stuck with me forever. I still try to do it whenever I can, but like this box right here was like, okay, we're gonna hide like attachment components so it's harder to steal. The seat, we're gonna make it, you know, an area where you can store things long term, like first aid, have charging ports for your phone. It's like a glove box from the car, but on your bike. But then also integrate lighting in, you know, pack a bunch of value, double click that area, because Momentum has a very similar bike, but it's literally just a port for an extra battery. So we were like, let's expand on that.
Yeah,
So that's kind of the story behind that piece.
And then we just recently expanded even further to make it more than the 1,000 watt-hour battery with charging capability and 110 output. So it's triple click now.
Triple click.
Triple clicking. I love it. No, you guys, this is amazing.
Thanks, man.
Go ahead, Sawyer.
If you go back over to the render board where the renderings are, yeah, so go to the red bike. This is a really good, cool side by side. So yeah, red, and then see that image top right there with the white background. So that's a gravity sketch rendering in Blender, obviously, and then the red image is like that's factory CAD rendering, and so like that's how they've changed over time, I guess.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool for me to see that side by side. I've never seen that side by side.
Yeah, and I guess the question, and kind of want to wrap up with this one so we can jump out for Q&A. But the question I would leave you guys off at, and we've sort of touched on it a bit, but how much did this gravity sketch model help influence the design with your factory partners? Were you able to use this 3D file to help, you know, hand off and get them to a you know, quicker stage?
For sure. I think we gave them that. We gave them the OBJ file.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And then they came back to us with hard CAD in SolidWorks. It was really amazing.
And what was the turnaround time on
lickety
that?
split?
Yeah, I'll jump in that part. So basically, how they use it is they take the model in, right? So we also have engineering people, we have geometry people to define what like the reach is, you know, stack heights, and these things. So basically, they just put that two things together and start like warping the gravity sketch towards the engineer model, and then just take the gravity sketch out and replace it with the actual pieces. You know, everything is like manufacturable pieces. We don't like to open new molds, like just like any new business, but also sustainability in it too. But eventually what they do is like start warping things together and replacing the gravity sketch geometry with real CAD geometry and start piecing it together. The turnaround time is actually faster than any 2D drawing they would take. That's the feedback I heard from the factory and then their engineers.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, we actually didn't touch on this either, but this will be the very last thing, I promise. You guys are, before using Gravity Sketch, and I know that you guys still do it, you were creating essentially bikes out of cardboard, right? Is that what your like physical prototyping was, or still is?
You have the photos. I think in the folders we can share that. that's ugly, but very fun to look at.
It was kind of like your
I'd
classic.
have to find them.
Like we did a lot of like masking tape 2D mock-ups at full scale in person. And then we did do one. It was kind of turned out terribly and wasn't that helpful, to be totally transparent. But we did a PVC like 3D printed prototype 1-to-1 scale mock-up, which was cool. It was kind of more of like an experiment to see if if it would even be like a helpful piece of the process, and it really wasn't.
Yeah.
Maybe if we had like a fab lab that we could work with, it would be, but.
And also not to steal too much like industry secrets. If you guys ever been to a car design studio, they all that is probably something you wouldn't thought of, but usually a car design studio, they will have a screen that's from the floor to the ceiling. By ceiling, I mean a ceiling that is like 4 or 5 or 6 foot high. It's like real human-sized cinematic screen in their studio to display one-to-one images, and that's a privilege most people don't have, where we can get from Gravity Sketch now.
Mm-hmm. Of course, yeah. And do you feel like, digital prototyping, the same way that you guys were essentially physically prototyping with these cardboards and things, do you feel like prototyping inside of Gravity Sketch has actually sped up that ideation or exploration process for you guys?
I'm thinking. Probably. Maybe, but no, I don't think so. Like, if anything,
Okay.
Rhino for me, because I can get so technical and down to the millimeter, that's helped me like explore like fabrication more quickly than Gravity Sketch.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's for different pieces, right? Like when we
Yep.
talk about injection molded pieces, like the front light or the C-tube light we have designed, like these things are all surface stuff. Like they can't really be done in the very rough way. Where in terms of like frame geometry, I think that's a yes, because they're just tubes, and it has a lot to do with how your crotch is building the seats and all that. So you definitely can ride over it and get some hands-on experiences. So I guess it really depends.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, again, this is amazing work, guys. Thank you for sharing with us. I think we're at about 8 minutes here. So let's step out of this and let's jump in and do some Q&A. What do you guys think?
Love it. And Austin, thank you for Austin put together this whole presentation. So shout out to you, man. This is really sick.
You guys made it easy on me.
Stop it.
Awesome. All righty, Tyler, I'll hand it back to you here.
Awesome. Yeah, that was just really cool stuff to see. So hopping back in here, yeah, let's do some Q&A. Sorry I wasn't able to be into the chat while we were going, but I'll start scrolling through and see if I see any. And if y'all want to start dropping some questions in here for Austin, Alex, or Sawyer, we'd love to get those coming. Here we go. So do y'all ever get mirrored in the endless and easy unrestrained experience of too much iteration? How do you keep it focused? Yeah, that's a good question. How do you keep it focused?
Whoa, what a question. I think time constraint. I try not to spend more than half a day in there.
Nice. Do you put that on
That's
yourself,
how
or is that really coming from Alex? Or is that coming from your partners? Like who puts that on you?
I think it's just me.
Yeah.
Vvolt's pretty free flowing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's time. Alex, do you have anything to add to that?
No, at the end of the day, you only have one thing to be made. So no matter how many ideas you gotta choose one. I mean, not necessarily choosing, like organically needling them to one that really works well. The other things like setup, time is great. Whenever you have deadline, you have better motive and spirits, and also the other thing is don't consider design as a parallel process. Like these 50 ideas, they weren't born equal. So you gotta know what's good for this, what's good for that, and eventually bring the goods, better, greater, you eliminate the bad as much as you can, and just arrive at a conclusion.
Nice. All right, we got another one here. So Austin, this one's going to be for you. So someone would like to know how they can access the bike workshop and tutorial that you mentioned. So
yeah. Okay. So let's see if I can do this without the headset. I can put the headset back on and share if I need. But essentially, when you click that blue button in your non-drawing hand controller, the very bottom of these icon lists, there's going to be a graduation cap. Okay. So that graduation cap is going to house all of the tutorials, all of the videos, and even that guided demo that you guys can go and reference inside of VR. So blue button in your non-drawing hand, all the way down at the very bottom, you'll notice it with the graduation cap, it'll be purple. And then click on that guy, and that's where all of your resources will be for you to access.
yeah, and honestly, this leads into the next question, like in terms of pain points. But like honestly, that's something we could probably do a better job surfacing as Gravity Sketch, right? Like it's kind of buried. You wouldn't even know it was there if you didn't mention it and just tell them how to get there. So, I think that's probably good feedback. Clearly something we could do a little bit better on our side. So with that, and this will be a Sawyer, Austin, Alex question. So what are some of the pain points you have using Gravity Sketch, and where do you think the product could go differently to help with the overall process? I mean, I think this is interesting for us from a Gravity Sketch perspective and just from y'all's power users. So
I'll let you guys go first.
I'm thinking. It's been a while since I've been in Gravity Sketch. To model. I was in there yesterday trying to get files sorted for Austin. But pain points, like you might be able to do this now. So tell me if I'm wrong, but being able to model in like an orthogonal plan view, like be stuck inside 2D and be able to like extrude stuff. Like I would love to be able to plug in inputs. I want this to be 38 millimeters by 47 and then be able to extrude, a long rectangle the way I want it. And then I wish I could render in Gravity Sketch, as selfish as that is, but you kind of can.
Yeah.
I would say some sort of assembly system. If I'm too much in CAD, but it could be like, there's a specific way you can categorize, not just like a folder, but some sort of other structure where you can have parts coming in very easily. Say for us, it could be, the head components or the tube components, or, maybe it's like just a section of lines that we can extrude it from. So it's like you can just grab it right away and pull that. And, some sort of a quicker shortcut is some sort of a spider menu, just go left, right, left, and then just get to access the part that you want, so you don't have to build it differently. So that would be something really cool if you can have that.
Yeah, makes sense. So this is an interesting
really cool. Go ahead. Go for it.
No, go for it. Go for it. Whatever you got, let's hear it.
Okay. No, I was literally just going to say, because I interface with the tool every day, I've fallen in love with it, and obviously there are things that we all want to fix, but I will say, like, you guys as the community, your feedback is value to us. So please continue to bring this feedback and things that you guys wish to see in the program, because that helps drive us to make that, this tool that you guys want to use every day, right? So no, we love this. Tyler and I love this feedback, and so does everybody else on the team. So keep it coming.
Well, and just to echo that, like in past jobs, when I do things like this, I would be shied away from, asking questions like that, because, it's not something that most companies want to have in a huge forum discussion, but we're building for you all here at Gravity Sketch, and we care about that. So we do want that. So it's just, it's great. But another question here, this is super interesting because we've been talking about transportation here, but then Austin, you're from footwear. So Kathy said, I'm in footwear, and I find if my tool design is getting complicated, they create multiple pieces in Gravity Sketch, even though the intention is it should all be one piece. Could this be problematic downstream? And if so, how?
Yeah. So, I don't see it as something that could be problematic. So the idea behind giving somebody those models downstream, and obviously, we need to be clear that these are not going to be the finalized models, right? This is not going to be the end all be all. But the goal of this is to facilitate that idea a lot more clearly, a lot earlier on in the process, right? So, from a 2D perspective, say we start talking about tooling, the traditional way of creating tooling is through 2D designs and tons of pages of blueprints, right? Which is no fun to put together, and it's no fun to read. And then what you get back in return is that flat 2D blueprint that's really confusing and very technical. So the thought behind giving them a 3D asset that depicts exactly what you want in terms of, these very minute details, and also letting them know, like, this is not the finalized version, but this is something for you, or a stepping stone for you to start on sooner. And if you communicate it in that light, I think you'll be great, and there shouldn't be, in my opinion, any hangups in the process or roadblocks.
Makes sense. So we are right at time. So I think we've got time for like one more question here. I'm going to direct this one at you, Sawyer. But what I will also say is, we just told y'all, we love feedback. We love all of this. If y'all have any questions that didn't get answered, you can email us at hello@gravitysketch.com. It's the email this webinar invite came from. We monitor that. We will get those surfaced to the right person at Gravity Sketch, to Sawyer, to Alex, whoever, and try and get back to you with an answer on that. So any feedback, any requests, anything like that, drop them in there. But with the final question before I thank everybody and do all of that, Sawyer, what were the most used features for creating these cool bikes, especially for the surfaces? So what did you do the most with in Gravity Sketch for this?
This like control point stroke tool, extruding pipes with control points. Like I think I use that on every single model you ever see. And then probably, what's it called? The poly, we convert just a square into a poly square, whatever the hell that's called. Like for the more complex. Thank you.
Cool.
I sound like a fraud on here, guys.
I mean, nah, man, look at your work. It speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So, I think this was amazing. We're over time now, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it. But I just want to thank everybody in the community who joined us today, participated, asked questions, all the people who have all these amazing hours in Gravity Sketch, all the way to these new users who are just getting started. Like, very excited to have you all be a part of it. And, Alex, Sawyer, Austin, thank you all for your time. I know you put a ton of time into this. I mean, Alex, I know you're in Asia. It's like 1 a.m. for you right now. So really appreciate you just making time to hop on and talk to everybody. And yeah, this was really awesome. So like I said, y'all have any follow-up questions or anything, email us at hello@gravitysketch.com, and hope you all have a good rest of your day.
It's been a blast. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everybody.
Awesome.